Hey guys, King of Charmander's here. Today I'll be your judge, jury, and your analyst. And today we have my top 5 teams for Ultra Premier Cup. And it took me a little bit. I did play around a little bit with building teams and trying to like sim some things, and I kind of don't like... I actually really don't like Ultra Premier for several reasons. When it first came out, before XLs came out, it was a lot of fun because it was kind of a, like, well, it was like Kingdra coin flip meta. I mean, it still technically is Kingdra coin flip meta, but there was a lot of things that you could use that would be that would make it really, like, diverse, I would say, and make a lot of cheap options work. Now with XLs being out and more XLs being introduced into the game, it's really nuts just how much XLs really do impact the overall meta. So when I was making teams, I will make a budget team list like I always do every season, because I really do think budget teams are necessary just to give you a kind of like, okay, you know what, this doesn't cost an arm and leg, going to defit, walking a bajillion miles, because no other game will ask you to do that. So no matter what justification you have for, oh, Pokemon Go, it's a bunch of grinders. If you're one of those trainers that's living on top of a stop and you have a bajillion spawns, are you really grinding super hard? Or are you driving into cities where you have a bajillion stops? So are you really grinding? Or are you just live in a more fortunate place like I do? Well, I don't even live in the best place. Cali got a lot of stops, but where I'm at, I don't got a lot of stuff. I don't even live on top of a freaking gym or stop, for crying out loud. So anyways, enough about my rant, but yes, XLs are dominating. If you're trying to guess at what King of Charm is trying to say, you like extra large cheeseburger, well, you're gonna get extra large fries with that, as well as a drink, because you're gonna see a lot of them in my top 5 analysis. Now, if you look over here just before, oh wait, hold on, as I always say, please consider donating to pvpoke.com right here on this link. You can easily click on here and then contribute. Or you just turn on ads and sim like a monster, like I do sometimes. Not a lot nowadays, because I'm pretty good about just creating things off the fly and making things work, but, you know, practice makes perfect. And as you see here, like I mentioned, XLs are really freaking good. In fact, like, most of the top 10 is actually, like, XL Pokemon. Most of them. But anyways, a lot of the teams that I'm composing of right now have a bunch of XLs. So if you do have those big extra large Pokemon that weigh more than Oprah on Good Morning America, or that might be the wrong show, so if you do watch it, I apologize. I would say way more than that demon. If you watch 7 Deadly Sins, that giant fat demon that like attacks Bond and Elaine on that one portion, it takes the fountain of youth. Actually, no, Bond drinks the fountain of youth and then kills the demon. That's a big demon, by the way. So that's pretty much the size of XLs in this meta. They're large, they're huge, and they do really well, which is why most of them are in the top 10. Anyways, let's get started. Alright, so for the first team I put together, if you have pancakes, again, like I mentioned, if you don't have these Pokemon, perfectly fine, I will do a budget team. I will do budget teams. But the first team I feature, Galarian Stunfisk is a beast, and put together with Kingdra and Gallade as a... This is kind of a double safe switch team. As you see here, Galarian Stunfisk lead, Kingdra safe switch, and Gallade as your closer. Or you could safe switch into Gallade if you feel like, okay, I know this team. Kingdra safe switch is still going to be really good. Octazooka does guarantee a 50% debuff, and because of that, it's extremely powerful. Combined with GFisk as your lead, you could break shield, sack GFisk, or you could safe switch into Kingdra and Dragon Breath a lot of things down. So this team is very powerful. As you see here, not a lot of bulk, only for the reason of Kingdra. Kingdra isn't super bulky, but it's still really strong. Very safe team. Good coverage, great coverage, and great consistency. So this is a great team for covering a lot of meta. As you see here, Swampert is one of your biggest weaknesses. You can easily safe switch into Kingdra and Gallade and realign everything. Jellicent can also give you an issue, but this is what makes Galarian Stunfisk great. Unless it's a fighter, as you see here, you could just pretty much either sack Galarian Stunfisk or just outright win the match or try to play it out. For example, if you do get the mirror with Galarian Stunfisk, you could try to be at the mirror, or you could switch into Gallade for a safe switch, try to close out shields, and then send in Galarian Stunfisk with an Earthquake to finish off their Galarian Stunfisk, or there's a lot of other plays you can do. Either way, getting the debuff will flip a whole lot of matchups if you are lucky enough to get it. And remember, it is 50-50. But as you see, this team is very, very powerful outside of getting hit with a fighter. Your back row can cover fighters, but, I mean, if you've played Kingdra, you know what to do. Just safe switch into Kingdra, get the debuff if it possibly happens to you, and then realign accordingly. And then, poof, you win. It's basically that simple. This team's biggest weakness is grass types. As you see here, they're not that bad. Kingdra doesn't have a bad time against Meganium or Superior, as long as you get the debuff. As long as you get the debuff. That's all. As long as you get the debuff. That's really it. As long as you get that debuff. And the rest of, as you see, Semi-Sage, etc. I already went and covered, hey, if you see a fighter, say switch into Kingdra, and then try to go to town, and then realign with Gallade. As you see, this, it's a pretty generic team. You can possibly just replace, like, Galarian Stunfisk with something else, like, if you feel comfortable with it, and this team will still be just as effective. And again, you're able to get that 50% debuff with Kingdra. Your coin flip, Lady Luck, is on your side, and if you are just lucky enough, you'll probably piss off your opponent, but you will win the battle. That's all that matters. As you see, the team has a 667 threat score, kind of in the medium, but again, I already gave, like, this team's pretty easy to run, not too hard. And of course, Galarian Stunfisk, there's a lot of options. You could sack GFisk, or you could come out with shield advantage, or you could just outright win the match. GFisk gives you a lot of pressure to break shields, and with the double safe switch combination like this, you can safe switch and nuke a lot of things in this meta. Alright, next up we got Jellicent, Alolan Ninetales, and Scrafty. A9 will be your safe switch. You could use Charm or Powder Snow. I prefer Powder Snow just because of the ability to, like, get off a bunch of weather balls off, which is basically why you're running Charm. I mean, not Charm. Powder Snow A9 in the first place, and this is Scrafty as a closer. This team was extremely powerful. I forgot which season it was, but it still does really, really well. Jellicent XL is super tanky, and of course, all three of these Pokemon are XL. As you see here, this team is great on every category, with the exception of consistency, because it's really great on consistency. Jellicent is a beast. Now, PvPoke.com doesn't show you on Team Builder your 2-shield scenario, which is why your threat score seems a lot higher than it is sometimes. But Jellicent does well against multiple combinations here. As you see, you can use Bubble Beam, but I use Ice Beam. The reason being is, with Ice Beam, you can threaten Dragonite. With Ice Beam, you can also threaten Ice types. There's a lot of scenarios where you can possibly finish with Ice Beam. Yes, you got Bubble Beam, but if you don't get the bait, or you might not get to the bait at all, depending on, like, what you're up against with Jellicent. A9 and Scrafty can close out against Dark types / other Ghost types, which is why they're extremely powerful, as you see here. And they're used to, it's basically to just cover Jelly's butt. Well, depending on which Pringles you're using, whether it be the King of Queen of Pringles, it is very, very large. It has an extremely thick booty, so it should be able to tank a couple of damage. So you could decide whether just give up Jellicent, or you could shoot off a bunch of Shadow Balls before you let it go. Either one, it's up to you. As you see here, one of the biggest, like, perks of Jellicent is it gives the Ice as well as the Poison type meta a kind of an issue. As you see here, you can beat a lot of things. Again, it doesn't show you the 2-shield scenario, so because of that, Jellicent looks like it's going to die against a lot of things, but you actually beat a lot of this list in the 2-shield. Just because Jellicent is very, very strong in the 2-shield, and if you're able to get fast moves through your opponent's charge moves, and time your charge moves right, and your fast moves right, it can get all that extra energy and just blast your opponent, or Hadouken your opponent, to oblivion. I don't know if Street Fighter's copyright, but you know, it's like Ryu. If it's Ryu, if you shoot, you could be that guy in the corner. If you've ever played Street Fighter, and you play that guy in the corner that just does nothing but spam Hadouken, I hate you, and I do it too, so can't entirely hate you. But you know what? As you see here, for potential threats, this team is very, very good. Jellicent doesn't do bad against Nidoqueen. The only reason it does bad is because if you get hit by Earth Power. But if you are able to call the Poison Fangs right, you will be fine. Talonflame also doesn't do great against Jellicent. Well, it's just because if you do get hit with Brave Bird, anything that gets hit with Brave Bird against Talonflame is going to suffer from a lot of damage. So that's not even a bad thing. And with Jellicent's pressure in the 2-shield, you could sack Jellicent, but you're going to take your opponent's shields if it's a Charmer, like with Clefable. And I don't foresee a lot of Muck, or, like, yeah. Your biggest threat's probably Venusaur, to be honest with you. Venusaur, Dark-type leads will probably give you an issue, or Driplim. Driplim gives you a little bit of an issue. Well, actually, it gives you a big issue, because Driplim, you would have to play the mirror out. It's essentially like a Jellicent mirror. Whoever lands a Shadow Ball wins, so it's going to be stressful anyways. But as you see here, again, you can sack Jellicent, realign with Scrafty and Alolan Ninetales with energy. All three of these Pokemon are XL, so If you have them, it's great. If you don't, this was a top team in the featured teams before, and I just really think it's here to stay and it'll actually do pretty well. If not, there's other teams on here, of course, you can use, but this team was a top team before, and I still think it will work really well if you play Jellicent well in the Season 8 Ultra Premier Cup. Alright, the next team, you might be familiar with it. It's actually the #1 team from Ultra Premier from like I think it was season 7, like the last split, but it actually does surprisingly well. If you used it in Ultra Premier for the previous, like before it ended, I don't think this was the top team. I think it was before this was it, but like the beginning. But I still think it'll do very, very well. I use this team in Open Ultra League. It's, well, the #1 for Ultra and Open Premier at one point. Or I think this was like #3, and it was the #1 from Open Ultra League, but I use it in Ultra Premier as well, and it did really, really good. Talonflame as a lead is a destroyer. What it does is it will either break shields, or you burp through shields, and you make your opponent hate life. And this is what it is. As you see here, a ton of bulk from this team. Triple XL is no joke, and all these 3 Pokemon do have a decent size amount of bulk, especially if they resist moves. Great in every other area, and against the overall meta, even with a newer like poison buff, does really, really well. I don't foresee anybody having XL Dragaggle, but even if they do, Dragaggle does follow Abomasnow pretty hard, and Umbreon can give good, like, Talonflame can, like, bully Dragaggle and force Dragaggle's shields, just because Dragaggle's Dragon Tail, even though it does a lot of damage over time, in the 2 shield, Talonflame can bully Dragaggle and force Dragaggle into a scenario where it has to expend its shields, or it just gets burped to death. If you lose lead against Talonflame, all you have to do is really either one, you can choose one of 2 things. One, sack Talonflame or Brave Bird and switch. If your bird goes through and you KO in a lot of scenarios, it will KO. So if you do get the burp through shields, it's amazing. If you don't, it's perfectly fine. Other than that, Umbreon can say switch out, sponge a ton of damage, or deal a ton of damage for you to be able to farm with either Abomasnow or Talonflame to close out matches. This team does really, really well. Now, there's a little bit of an issue, with Machamp. So, Magnezone in the 2 shield isn't too bad against Talonflame as long as you don't get hit by a Wild Charge. But for Machamp, the reason why Machamp is difficult is because in the 2 shield, Machamp can actually straight Rock Slide through Talonflame. Machamp also is able to give you a hard time with this entire team. So, the thing about Talonflame is that you'll have to break both of your shields with Machamp, but you could farm down Machamp. So you could farm Machamp down with Abomasnow, but you have to hope that Abomasnow with energy and Umbreon can close out the match. So Machamp as well as Magnezone can be rough for you. Other than that, this team does well against a lot of combinations. Again, if you do lose the lead with Talonflame anyway, just try to burp through shield, or you could burp and switch. So there's a lot of options with this team. It has a low threat score, surprisingly, despite all of the water Pokemon. That's only because of Talonflame's nuking ability. So this team does very, very well. It does very, very well even in the newer meta. So other than Abomasnow being a little bit of liability against the poison typings, as long as you have like Weather Ball stored, or Weather Ball outpaces a lot of the poison types anyways. So, well, except for Poison Jab, but I don't foresee seeing a bajillion Nidoqueens, but Nidoqueen does have a hard time against Talonflame in the 2 shield anyway, so just keep in mind, this team is very, very powerful and can bring you victory in a lot of scenarios. I plan on using this team for Open Ultra, but if you plan on using it for Ultra Premier, it can neutralize a lot of the XL combinations, or even the newer XLs that are coming out. And the next 2 teams I have are actually a little crazy, but I did practice of them for a little bit, and they actually did surprisingly well. Nidoqueen Shadow, Politoed, Azure Say Switch, and Pidgeot to close out. So this is a pretty insane team. They're all XLs, but Politoed puts an immense pressure on your opponent. Burp Pidgeot will destroy a lot of things, and Shadow Nidoqueen with Poison Fang does a huge amount of damage. It's the #1 lead for a reason. There's a lot of outside of like, actually you could try to bully your way through Swampert too, but like outside of Swampert or water leads, your Politoed and Pidgeot do very well against the water meta, and with Feather Dance, Pidgeot can do a lot of debuff plays, etc. This team will put heavy pressure on your opponent. It has an A for coverage, not a lot of bulk unfortunately, just because if you look over here, Nidoqueen, well, I don't really think it's Nidoqueen Shadow. I think it's Pidgeot XL. Pidgeot XL, even though it's level 50, it's not like it's not super bulky, but because of Feather Dance, it gives it, I think that bulk rating is kind of underrated. Great safety and consistency, however, and if you look below here, this team is very, very interesting. And there's a lot of things you can do. So if you see Galarian Stunfisk, you can try to win the match with Galarian Stunfisk. If you see Skarmory, you could, like, of course, switch out right away. But as you see here, like, it's a very interesting team. A lot of your weaknesses, you could try to bully through with Shadow Nidoqueen, unless it's a Skarmory lead, which I don't know how many. I haven't seen many Skarmory leads, but if you do see one, it's just unfortunate because it's like Open Great League and it's freaking Skarmory. But Shadow Nidoqueen will threaten your opponent. You could Earthquake through, try to win the match outright. Otherwise, you have Politoed as a safe switch. Politoed will spam down and force shields, and then you can come out with shield advantage with Nidoqueen, or you can send Pidgeot to clean up with a lot of combinations. With Feather Dance, you can have Pidgeot eat a whole lot of damage. So, you look at your potential threats here, it's very interesting and bounces around a lot. Shadow Nidoqueen can 2-shield its way through Abomasnow. The only things you can't 2-shield your way with is Skarmory, Steelix, or Skarmory and Bronzong. So, any Psychic type, of course you want to switch out with Shadow Nidoqueen, and with any Steel type, but Politoed and Pidgeot can pressure down those combinations. As you see, Skarmory can actually lose in the 1-shield against Pidgeot just because Pidgeot's burb does so much damage. And you can choose to Feather Dance your opponent down to lower the bleeding. So, there's a lot of interesting things you can do with this team. It's very, very skill-based. I've used it, but like it's like a lot of combinations I went up against. I was like, wow, this team does surprisingly well. Pidgeot with Shield Advantage and Feather Dance allows you to set up plays with Politoed and with Nidoqueen. Or you can say switch into Politoed, break shields, and then farm down with Pidgeot and Nidoqueen, and then close out the match with either one. This team actually has a really low threat score of 610. So 600 is the low point. 610 isn't a lot. It's the Ice archetype can be a little scary, but with Politoed and Earthquake, you could do a lot of damage. Or, like I said, you could close it with Pidgeot. So, Ice is probably your worst nightmare in this meta, or like Drifblim or Jellicent or just Ghost in general. But Shadow Nidoqueen can do a lot of damage in the 2 shields, and then set up plays with you with Politoed and Pidgeot. That's why the threat score, despite the fact that, like, yeah, you see a lot of, like, meta picks here, it can do really well in a lot of different scenarios. This team isn't really friendly, though. Like, I've noticed, like, when I did practice with it, I was like, wow, there's a lot of, like, fanciness you have to do, so, again, very high pressure team, and you have to be a little fancy with Pidgeot and Nidoqueen, just because Pidgeot's Feather Dance isn't too friendly, and, of course, Nidoqueen can get shut down by Drifblim, or just like I said, ghost types, etc. Alright, so for the final team, for those of you that were looking at Pidgeot and you're like, I like this. Well, Pidgeot's actually really interesting. It's very, very strong. Feather Dance, well, assuming that Niantic can fix it before it gets unbanned, it is a number 3, but it's also a part of a lot of cores. If you put Pidgeot in a lot of teams, it's going to have a lot of coverage just because Pidgeot beats a lot of the elemental Pokemon. And because there's a lot of things you could do with Feather Dance. So, couple that with 2 very high pressure Pokemon, and you get a very high coverage team. As you see here, very safe just because Galarian Stunfisk is the strongest safe switch. Not super bulky because of Machamp, but here's the thing. You can actually exchange Machamp for a different Mon. Pidgeot GFisk core is really what makes this team work. The reason I like Pidgeot and Machamp in here is because with Machamp in here, you don't have to worry about ice types from Pidgeot, like beating down Pidgeot. You don't have to worry about, also for Pidgeot, steel types giving you a hard time because Pidgeot is resisted by things like Empoleon, etc. So you kind of have like a double answer against steel types, and it's pretty, well, generic. Have 2 coverages against your lead, or make sure your leads kind of complement each other well. But what I also like about Machamp is because Machamp has Rock Chop and Raw Slide, if you look below here, this team does very well against a lot of straight meta picks. Pidgeot can actually do a lot of damage in the 2-shield against Galarian Stunfisk because Pidgeot's Feather Dance. Feather Dance allows you to debuff like a madman, and you can actually, like, it's very interesting, you could try to sack Pidgeot, farm with Galarian Stunfisk or Machamp, and leave your opponent in the 0 shields. If you look over here at the potential threats, in the 2-shield, Pidgeot beats a lot of interesting combinations. And actually beats pretty much everything the back row would lose against, or gives you play against a lot of things. Outside of seeing like an ice type or something like that, but with 2 shields, Pidgeot's Feather Dance can cause a lot of problems for your opponent, whether they resist it or not. Going -2 guaranteed is not a great thing for your opponent. And like I said, because Machamp's and Galarian Stunfisk pressure, you can clean out. So that's why this team has a really low threat score. if you can, like I said, with this, I like this core a lot, but just because if you do this, the problem is they're all XL, of course. Like I said, I'll be doing a budget team, but as you see, like, together, like, this combination has such a low threat score. With your alternates being, there's a lot of things you can alternate with, Jellicent, etc. I don't like Jellicent for the sole reason that Venusaur might give you an issue, but as you see here with that Pidgeot GFisk core, there's a lot of things you could do with this team. So, really low threat score combined with all of these, just because Pidgeot has such a strong matchup in the 2-shield against a lot of combinations. Outside of seeing an Ice type, of course, like I mentioned. Or possibly things like Steelix, where if I don't foresee seeing Steelix XL too much, but if you do, it kind of sucks. But this team is very, very powerful, does very, very well, or this combination in general. I like Machamp in the back as well because of Machamp and Rock Slide. Machamp and Rock Slide have a ton of coverage, and of course Machamp's pressure with Cross Chop is just incredible. So I really like this team, and like I said, I really think the Pidgeot GFisk core is very, very strong and very, very powerful in this meta. You're gonna have a hard time against something that can -2 you. The only issue is it does take a lot of XL candy, but Pidgeot's been out, Pidgey's been out for a long time. So if you're like me and you only have to shell out half of like your XL requirement for it, and then catch the rest of the Pidgeys for it, it wasn't actually too bad to build a Pidgeot XL, at least in my opinion. But I still don't think the XL system is a great idea. So again, I think this is the only team as well that, well, I think this is like one of the teams where I only have like 2 XLs in it. GFisk XL is a high barrier to entry, but again, Machamp has had its community day, and it's really, really good. But I love the Pidgeot Stunfisk core for this meta, and I really think it'll serve you well assuming Pidgeot gets unbanned sometime soon, before Season 69. Niantic. And that's GG's. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope these top teams do give you an idea, but Ultra Premier isn't too friendly if you want to create like the high-end teams as far as like coverage goes, or just the really strong like Pokemon that really dominate overall the meta in the first place. And yeah, it just has a high barrier to entry. I personally don't like it. Again, if you don't have access to any of these Pokemon, then I will be doing a budget team. I always do a budget list for Ultra Premier because I think it's necessary, and there's a lot of options out here for you to try out. However, for the most powerful teams, or the teams that do have the highest statistic rate or the lowest coverage ratings, it's all very expensive. I don't like it. Believe it or not, King of Charmanders doesn't have a GFisk XL as well. I don't play too much nowadays as far as like grinding and whatnot, just because of life in general, and because it's hard to get battles in and grind at the same time, along with everything else I do. I'm a therapist, for crying out loud. Being a therapist is more important than a video game. Well, technically a mobile game, but you know, you catch my drift, you know what I mean? I help you guys out, but at the same time, my profession as a therapist is a lot more important, as well as grad school, which I'm trying to be a therapist for, and I'm still doing therapy because I'm in practicum right now. But anyways, with that being said, again, I've been able to be successful without a ton of XLs. You can too. So have no hope. I made it without a GFisk XL. I also made it without things like Skarmory XL, etc. Politoed XL. I don't go out to nests like I do and create XL Pokemon. Believe it or not, I don't. I still find a way to win just because I'm a good player and a good team builder. But I've been playing the Talonflame. Like I said, the Talonflame team took me to Legend. If you have that, it still works really well. Other than that, I will be giving you budget teams to help you climb, because I really think budget teams are still going to be really good. Just because outside of a high barrier to entry for Poison XL Pokemon or Pidgeot XL, unless you've been playing for a while like I have, then you should be okay in this meta. And Pidgeot might still be banned for the remainder of Ultra Premier, so yeah. It might not be that bad. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, Pidgeot XL and other XLs are just super dominant. I like classifying Ultra Premier as XL Premier, or just XL, the Ultra XL lead. That's what I call it. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully these XLs do give you an idea. I practiced a bit with each of these teams on the training simulator and did a few sims, and they all worked out really well. So hopefully they work out with you. I will be putting the top statistical teams out that people are using later on, and the most common teams like I always do. Again, I work really hard on these videos, and I spend a lot of time trying to make sure I have effective teams, etc., and to make sure you have the latest and greatest data for Go Battle League. So, would you please, if you haven't done so yet, for all my subscribers, I really do appreciate you. For those of you that haven't subscribed, here's how easy to subscribe. I made it really easy for you. All you have to do is put your mouse above that little box at the bottom right that says subscribe, and poof, you will easily subscribe. It's totally free, helps out the channel, and definitely helps me out with my sub goals. And if you never know, you might get a notification for a video you might really want to watch, and it might help you climb, and it might eventually even help you take you to legend, like some of the videos I put out for my viewers and longtime subscribers. Anyways, I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Good luck on your Go Battle League sets, and I will see you guys on the next video.